Throughout the annals of global history, few governments have managed to endure for a millennium. Even the ancient Zhou dynasty of China, with its storied past, saw its splendor wane after a mere 8 centuries. The unified Roman Empire's brilliance was fleeting, lasting no more than 5 centuries. Yet, the 5 major world religions, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, have each transcended the millennia, thriving with vigor. Islam, the youngest among them, has surpassed 1,000 years. Christianity is not far behind, nearing the 2,000-year mark, while Buddhism, Hinduism, and Judaism are even more ancient, comfortably seated for over 2 millennia. Individuals are subject to the cycle of birth and death, families rise and fall, nations and ethnic groups ebb and flow, yet religion stands firm amidst the vicissitudes of the world. This undeniable fact reveals the extraordinary status of religion as an eternal need for all humanity, transcending borders, races, time, and space. Religion is far from mere superstition, it is, in fact, the second source of life for the human spirit. As long as humanity exists, religion will continue to flourish. Some may mistakenly believe that food and sex are the foundations of human existence, not realizing that these are merely the needs at the instinctual level of biology. What sets humans apart from other creatures is that profound desire for a spiritual home. The religious need mentioned here is broad, not confined to specific religious forms. In short, it is the eternal exploration and pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty. In this brief and challenging journey of life, the solace, guidance, and belonging of the soul are especially important. Faced with regrets, confusions, and ubiquitous sufferings that human power finds hard to fill, it is religion that provides answers and comfort. Therefore, the need for religion is indeed one of the 3 basic human needs, its influence sometimes surpassing the other 2. It is for this reason that religion has been able to traverse time and space, enduring through the ages. Let us now delve deeper into why religion has been able to take root in the world from the perspective of the law of cause and effect. In ancient times, most emperors did not have grand political ideals. After seizing power through intrigue and force, they settled into indulgence and even dreamed of passing on their legacy to countless generations. Their original intentions were mostly rooted in selfishness, with very few harboring broad ideals and compassionate wishes. Borrowing the wisdom of Buddhism, as you sow, so shall you reap, how could such a selfish starting point lead to lasting peace and stability for the world? Modern political leaders often prioritize the interests of their own country or group, and for this interest, they are willing to forsake justice and even sacrifice the welfare of people in other countries. How can such a narrow-minded, selfish goal, and profit-first approach win global admiration and remain in the hearts of people for a long time? On the contrary, the reason why religion has been able to last is because its doctrines generally transcend national boundaries, races, and the limitations of the real world. Religions with national and racial colors, such as Shinto in Japan and Judaism, although they can continue in their homelands due to their transcendent characteristics of the world, are ultimately limited by the framework of the nation and race, and it is difficult to become a global belief, which is a manifestation of the law of cause and effect. The reason why political ideas and their practices are difficult to last is because they are often only to solve specific problems of a certain era, or the difficulties in a certain aspect of life. Their starting point is narrow, the motive is selfish, the value is limited, and it is difficult to last forever in people's hearts. The perspective of religion is more far-reaching. It not only deals with the current difficulties of mankind but also explores the eternal mysteries of life. It not only talks about life but also touches on death. It transcends national boundaries, races, classes, and even transcends the world. Therefore, religion has become an eternal need for mankind. After all, even if all the things in the world are satisfied, it is only a temporary peace, and the true satisfaction of the human heart is not something the world can give. In summary, the profound significance of religion for life, and why the demand and value of Buddhism have not only not decreased but become more prominent over the past 2,500 years, highlights the urgency of in-depth exploration and practice. What is the essence of Buddhism? When it comes to Buddhism or the Dharma, we often hear narratives that start from the historical context, from the birth, renunciation, enlightenment, and teaching of Sakyamuni Buddha, to the later division of Buddhism into the Theravada in the south and the Mahayana that spread to the north, and even to the development of various sects in China. This historical perspective is certainly valuable, but for the core question of what is the Dharma, it seems to have touched the skin but not the essence. I do not intend to give a concise and clear answer in this short time, but I hope to explore this issue from 3 different perspectives, and whether such an exposition is beneficial, I hope everyone will not hesitate to teach. The 3 perspectives are, first, by comparing the differences between Buddhism and other religions, highlighting the characteristics of Buddhism through contrast. Second, focusing on the core doctrine of Mahayana Buddhism that all sentient beings have Buddha nature, exploring the reasons why we have not yet awakened, and why meditation is the way to Buddhahood, directly delving into the core of Buddhism. Finally, for the modern lifestyle, introducing some simple and easy methods that are in line with the principles of Buddhist practice, aiming to let everyone personally experience, gradually deepen, and ultimately understand the true meaning of Buddhism. When talking about the differences between Buddhism and other religions, many people may think that Buddhism is just one of many religions, and they are more or less the same. But in fact, Buddhism has an essential difference. In today's society, people are restless and lost, and various religions are trying to save this situation. The unique characteristics of Buddhism just reflect its greatness, thoroughness, and positivity, making it the supreme method to save people's hearts and relieve the suffering of life. The general religion mentioned here mainly refers to Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and so on. Although these religions may think that their doctrines are very different and difficult to reconcile within themselves, from the perspective of Buddhism, there are actually many commonalities in their basic doctrines. Therefore, for the convenience of discussion, I will treat these religions as a whole and then compare and analyze them with Buddhism. In my exploration and comparison, I have identified 7 significant differences between Buddhism and other religions. The foremost of these is: 1. Buddhism does not subscribe to the notion of a creator God initiating the universe. Most religions, including Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and other belief systems, share a core belief in the existence of an omnipotent God who is supreme, the creator of all things, and all-powerful. God is the source of all, holding dominion over everything. However, Buddhism rejects the concept of an omnipotent creator. In the philosophical foundation of Buddhism, there is actually no absolute starting point for the birth of the universe. The concept of a beginning is, in fact, a product of our limited human minds. Because we find it difficult to fully comprehend the intricate web of cause and effect, we create a hypothesis that is easy to understand. Consider, for instance, today's lecture. We say it starts at 8 and ends at 9. This seems to define a clear beginning and end. But upon closer examination, there are many causes and effects before the lecture. Everyone comes from all directions, and these events occur before the lecture. For these processes, 8 o'clock is, in fact, an end. Similarly, after the lecture, everyone disperses and goes their separate ways, making 9 o'clock a new beginning. Thus, beginning only has meaning in specific contexts. An absolute starting point is actually meaningless. Traditional religious cosmogonies fall into error precisely here, as they abruptly sever the endless chain of cosmic cause and effect and arbitrarily set a starting point. Based on this assumption, an omnipotent God who creates the universe is conjured. But interestingly, if God is omniscient, omnipotent, and merciful, why not simply send us, these suffering souls, directly to a paradise? Clearly, this has not happened. In fact, the concept of God is a creation of human thought. Ancient people, unable to explain natural phenomena such as thunder, earthquakes, tsunamis, and plagues, conceived the concept of gods to explain the mysteries of the universe and satisfy psychological needs for safety, thus promoting social progress. However, when it comes to ultimate truth, this artificial setting is hard to justify. Buddhism not only reveals that the original beginning is a reflection of human cognitive limitations, but also points out that the image of God as the creator of the universe is equally an illusion of thought. This insight makes the wisdom of Buddhism surpass other religions' doctrines in depth and breadth, making it one of its most distinctive differences. 2. The vision of Buddhism is to guide everyone to achieve Buddhahood. In the vast realm of Buddhism, there are exalted Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and numerous deities, but the Buddha in Buddhism is entirely different from the God in other religions. Let me briefly define the concept of Buddha. Generally, when we speak of the Buddha, we refer to Shakyamuni Buddha. Historians see him as a great thinker in India about 2,500 years ago. For believers, he is the founder and teacher of Buddhism, and from the profound perspective of the Dharma, Shakyamuni Buddha is one among the countless Buddhas in the vast universe. The Buddha I introduce is in the broad sense, the common characteristics of all Buddhas. I attempt to define Buddha in this way. Buddha is a paragon of personality where wisdom, emotion, and ability have all reached a state of perfection. In other words, a Buddha possesses great wisdom, great compassion, or omniscience, and boundless pity, and great ability. It should be noted here that there is a difference between a Buddha and the omnipotent God in religion. A Buddha is not omnipotent and cannot directly bestow liberation upon us. He can only serve as a guide, directing us, as true liberation still relies on individual practice and effort. A Buddha does not decide who goes to heaven or hell. Not only is a Buddha distinct from the concept of an omnipotent God, but Shakyamuni Buddha also tells us that this state of perfect wisdom, emotion, and ability, Buddha nature, is inherent in every individual. Just as the surface of a lake, when ruffled by the wind and losing its mirror-like tranquility, people become engrossed in external temptations, the pursuit of fame, emotion, and power, until the end of life, without awakening, thereby obscuring their inherent Buddha nature. This prevents us from achieving perfection in our highest wisdom, richest emotions, and infinite abilities, and from liberating ourselves from the sea of suffering. The Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, came into the world precisely to educate sentient beings, to enlighten their inherent Buddha nature. His great compassion and aspiration hope that every sentient being can grow to become a Buddha who is as good and supreme as he is. In the eyes of the Buddha, all people and sentient beings possess Buddha nature and are equal by birth. In contrast, other religions present a different picture. There, God and humans are eternally separate entities, with God high above and humans looking up humbly. The omnipotent God is the center of faith, and humans must believe in God to be saved, entering heaven through God's grace after death. However, humans can never become God, and there is an insurmountable gap between the two. Although mystical branches of Christianity and Islam can also reach the so-called union with God, this is still a form of dualism. Humans cannot completely become God, they can only unite with Him. This dualistic concept is an inherent limitation of its doctrinal framework. Therefore, Christian sages like Meister Eckhart and Islamic saints like Al-Hallaj, who have reached profound states, are often considered heretics, with the former being severely criticized by the Church and the latter even losing his life. A Buddha is not only content with becoming a Buddha himself, but hopes and teaches that everyone can become a Buddha. This heart of equality, wisdom, and compassion surpasses ordinary religious concepts. In summary, Buddhism encourages self-respect and confidence, teaches us how to free ourselves from the pain of the cycle of life and death, and helps all sentient beings to escape the sea of suffering. We should cherish the teachings of the Buddha, practice diligently, uncover our inherent Buddha nature, and achieve perfection in wisdom, emotion, and ability, so that everyone can become a perfect Buddha. 3. The inclusiveness and comprehensiveness of Buddhism, an open and profound system of wisdom. Buddhism, especially Mahayana Buddhism, is built on the foundation of equality of all sentient beings and the possession of Buddha nature by all, which makes Buddhist doctrine exhibit unique inclusiveness and comprehensiveness. You will not find exclusive dogmas like the first commandment of the Christian Decalogue, "You shall have no other gods before me," in Buddhism. Christians, Muslims, or Hindus regard each other's deities as false, arguing over the issue of true God and false God, and history is no stranger to wars triggered by this, such as the Crusades and conflicts between Protestantism and Catholicism. Buddhism avoids such opposition, advocating the equality of Buddha nature, believing that everyone can become a Buddha, thus there is no air of exclusion and dogmatism. Furthermore, the broad-mindedness of Buddhism can accommodate and integrate various religious doctrines. No matter which religious theory, there is a corresponding place in Buddhism, and some profound truths in Buddhism are rare in other religions. Take compassion for all beings as an example. Buddhism not only shares common concepts with other religions but also proposes a higher level of understanding, such as great compassion without conditions and great compassion as one body, as well as the vast and boundless Bodhisattva's vows, and profound wisdom of emptiness, all of which are rare in the doctrines of other religions. Buddhism never belittles other beliefs. It recognizes that the roots of sentient beings vary, and teaching methods should naturally be flexible and diverse. Various religions and philosophical systems each have their value and role, providing education and benefits to specific groups in specific times and spaces. Following any positive religious belief can bring well-being in this life or the next, but to pursue ultimate liberation and perfect enlightenment, one must follow the path to achieve this goal. Buddhism views various religions more as differences in depth rather than right and wrong. For any issue, Buddhism can provide multiple levels of interpretation to meet the needs of different sentient beings. This all-encompassing and unfathomable characteristic is where the breadth and depth of Buddhism lie. 4. The Buddha, the embodiment of carefree freedom and liberation. In many religious narratives, there is a common thread: if one does not worship God or goes against God's will, God becomes angry, inflicts punishment, and even condemns people to eternal torment in hell. These religious texts are filled with stories and warnings of God's wrath and the calamities He inflicts upon humanity. The Christian concept of the Last Judgment is particularly terrifying, as it threatens eternal imprisonment in hell with no hope of escape. If this were true, wouldn't humanity be utterly miserable? Perhaps, at the very beginning of creation, God should not have been so cruel. Innocent lives created simply because they do not believe in God or have not been baptized are sentenced to eternal suffering by this merciful God, which is truly perplexing. Let us assume, for a moment, that such an omnipotent God exists. Let us then explore His character. If God can be angry and send people to hell, then there is anger and a desire for revenge in His heart, which are manifestations of affliction. Anger arises from the fluctuation of likes and dislikes, indicating that the angry person still harbors the seeds of affliction within. As you listen to my words now, perhaps there is no anger, at least, I hope not. But that does not mean you are incapable of anger. If I were to suddenly step down and slap you without reason, anger would immediately arise. This proves that the latent seeds of greed, anger, and ignorance are deeply rooted and difficult to eradicate, manifesting immediately upon encountering the right conditions. Therefore, whether human or divine, if one can be angry and punish the disobedient, it indicates that the seeds of affliction within have not been severed, and one is essentially still an ordinary person, not liberated, let alone possessing the perfect divine nature. The Buddha, however, is different. He does not become angry, does not judge sentient beings, and does not send people to hell out of anger. If anyone ends up in hell, it is due to their own karmic forces, not as a punishment from the Buddha. Not only does the Buddha not send people to hell, but he also seeks ways to rescue beings from hell. Therefore, Buddhism never threatens by saying, "Do not anger the Buddha," or "the Buddha's wrath will condemn you to hell." On the contrary, Buddhism encourages people to bravely enter the depths of suffering to help sentient beings. The great vow of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, "If I do not go to hell, who will?" is a vivid embodiment of this spirit. Comparing the qualities of the Buddha with those of deities from other religions makes the transcendence and greatness of the Buddha readily apparent. 5. Buddhism, the radiance of embracing democracy and advocating rationality. The core teachings of Buddhism naturally contain equality, tolerance, and inclusiveness, which have historically painted a picture of tolerance and democracy in Buddhism, in stark contrast to the dogmatism and intolerance of some religions. There is no record of religious persecution or heresy trials in Buddhist history. Instead, various sects and schools enjoy a broad space for freedom of speech, where they can express themselves openly and even criticize the views of other sections. This democratic spirit and commitment to truth have reached such an extreme that there is even bold expression like scolding the Buddha and cursing the ancestors, and when explaining the profound meaning of all dharmas being empty and nothing to attain, one can directly say that the Buddha is a dried dung stick and that the word Buddha is not pleasing to my ears. How thorough and bold this spirit is! Where else can you find such frank and unrestrained expression? In most religions, the words of God or the religious leader are unquestionable divine edicts that believers must accept without question, right or wrong. Buddhism, however, is different. Buddhists can choose whether to accept the Buddha's teachings, because the Buddha's teachings are variable and cater to diversity. Buddhists can adopt some parts of the Buddha's teachings without necessarily absorbing them all. In the sutras, Shakyamuni Buddha often said to his disciples and the audience, "I am one who speaks the truth, speaks the real, and does not speak falsely." He always encouraged the pursuit of truth, emphasizing rational thinking, and never used fear or coercion to force others to obey. The Lotus Sutra clearly records that when the Buddha wanted to preach the profound and hard-to-believe Dharma, 5,000 listeners who thought they had attained liberation got up and left. The Buddha was not angry or pursued them, but said, "Their time has not yet come." Hearing and not believing would only increase their troubles. It is not bad for them to leave. Such tolerance, democracy, and greatness are truly touching. 6. The love of Buddhism, boundless and infinite. The Christian Bible advocates love your neighbor and even love your enemies. These teachings are indeed noble, and Christianity has gained widespread influence because of its teachings that transcend national, racial, and human boundaries. However, although many religions encourage love beyond worldly limits, they often stop in the face of religious differences. People may be able to forgive their enemies, but it is difficult to show the same love to those with different beliefs. This leads to the question, are those so-called heathens not also creations of God? As children of God, why should they be pushed into an eternal abyss? How is God's boundless love reflected? In contrast, the compassion of Buddhism is boundless, absolute, and unconditional. It is not only extended to all of humanity, but also to all life. Buddhism encourages people to not only love their enemies, but also those with different beliefs. In Buddhism, it is believed that only when countless sentient beings are redeemed can practitioners become Buddhas. On a deeper level, from a philosophical perspective, the love of Buddhism transcends all forms and boundaries, integrating with the profound wisdom of emptiness, and naturally flowing out of boundless compassion when recognizing that all dharmas have no self-nature. This philosophy of non-duality between emptiness and compassion constitutes the most profound and unspeakable part of Buddhist teachings. Although these concepts are not easy to understand immediately, I mention them here in the hope of leaving a preliminary impression. In the Karmapa's Great Seal Aspiration Prayer, there are a few lines that deeply embody this teaching. All sentient beings are inherently Buddha nature. Failing to understand this leads to the cycle of samsara. May we always harbor unbearable compassion for sentient beings in endless suffering. When compassion arises, the nature of emptiness naturally manifests. May we practice diligently, day and night, without straying from this infallible path. The essence of all things and the mind is emptiness, and great compassion is inherently present. When the emptiness of all dharmas is realized, the heart of great compassion naturally wells up, which is a wonderful spectacle. The Buddha, seeing that sentient beings are obscured by ignorance and cannot reveal their inherent Buddha nature, thus feels deep compassion. With the wisdom eye, seeing that the essence of all sentient beings is Buddha nature, they see that sentient beings not becoming Buddhas is a lack of their own perfection, and thus continue to guide all sentient beings on the path to Buddhahood. Practitioners with cultivation often feel I am with all Buddhas, and all Buddhas of the 10 directions are always in the state of I am integrated with all sentient beings. Only compassion and boundless love that come from such a profound realm are without discrimination, selflessness, thorough, perfect, and transcend all boundaries and measures. 7. The distinction between Buddhist Pure Lands and other religious heavens. Sometimes, friends who do not fully understand Buddhism may say, Christians pray to go to heaven, and Buddhists yearn for Pure Lands. These two seem to be no different. At first glance, this statement seems to make sense, but upon closer examination, you will find that they are as different as heaven and earth. The heaven and hell depicted by other religions seem to be two extremes opposed to the human world, with heaven, earth, and hell encompassing the entire universe. The human world is a temporary examination room, and heaven or hell is the destination of life. This is a limited and negative worldview. The concept of Pure Lands in Buddhism is quite different. The Buddhist cosmology is infinite. Mahayana Buddhism clearly describes the boundlessness of the universe when presenting the grandeur of the Buddhas, with countless worlds being just a grain of sand in the endless Dharma realm. Thus, while other religions have only one heaven, the Pure Lands in Buddhism are incredibly numerous. For example, Amitabha Buddha's Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss is just one Pure Land in the vast Dharma realm. Furthermore, the Pure Lands in Buddhism are not only in the West, but also in the East, and even within this very world. The Vimalakirti Sutra says, when the mind is pure, the land is pure. If the mind is pure, the present moment is a pure land, so being reborn in a pure land and being born in this world are essentially no different, nor are they the end, not an eternal other shore. The eternal life in heaven spoken of by other religions is to be with God and enjoy endless joy. However, according to Buddhist karmic law, limited good deeds are not enough to exchange for eternal blessings, so when the joy of heaven is exhausted and the good causes are used up, one still needs to reincarnate. It is like shooting an arrow into the sky, it will fall when the force is exhausted. The Buddhist journey to a pure land is based on pure conduct, leading to a favorable environment for cultivation. With the blessings of the Buddhas, the environment aids your practice. Once accomplished, one acts according to the power of vows. The Pure Land is not a place of permanent residence, but rather a starting point from which one may travel to other realms or even return to this world to help all beings. In summary, the hope for eternal enjoyment in heaven is a limited perspective of selfish thoughts and negative illusions, whereas the cultivation in Pure Lands is an endless manifestation of the Bodhisattva's vows, a magnificent journey, exploring the essence of Buddha. The uniqueness of Buddhism extends beyond the superficial differences previously outlined, aiming to guide us into a deeper understanding of what is the Buddha's teaching. Now, let us delve deeper from another dimension. 1. How to comprehend the true Buddha. 2. Why humans fail to reveal their inherent Buddha nature. And 3. What methods did the Buddha teach us to cultivate, ultimately achieving the perfection of personality that integrates rationality, emotion, and ability to the highest good? Earlier, I attempted to provide a concise definition of Buddha. Buddha refers to the state of personality where rationality, emotion, and ability all reach ultimate perfection. It should be clarified that this definition barely scratches the surface of the absolute essence of Buddha nature, and is merely a simplified interpretation within the framework of human cognition for ease of understanding. In other words, Buddha implies possessing extraordinary wisdom, boundless compassion, and incomparable ability. So, what constitutes great wisdom, great compassion, and great ability? Let me elaborate. First, what is meant by great wisdom? The definition of great wisdom in Buddhism is divided into two levels. One is the depth of wisdom, the other is the breadth of wisdom. The depth of wisdom, known in Buddhist terms as wisdom of suchness, represents the most profound understanding and insight into the essence of things. The breadth of wisdom is called wisdom of all aspects, meaning a comprehensive and detailed understanding of all phenomena and knowledge. Let's explore wisdom of suchness. Imagine a glass of water in front of me. Different people may have different perceptions. An ordinary person might only see a drink to quench thirst, A chemist would consider it a compound of hydrogen and oxygen, a physicist might see the movement of electrons or a form of energy, a philosopher would ponder the chain of cause and effect or the nature of existence, a bodhisattva might view it as an illusion manifested by consciousness, and a Buddha would see the glass of water as an embodiment of perfect Buddha nature. This illustrates that for the same object, the depth of understanding and cognition can vary greatly among different individuals. The Buddha's wisdom of suchness must not only transcend the understanding of ordinary people and scientists but also surpass the realm of sages, reaching an unfathomable state of Dharma that cannot be described in words. So, what about wisdom of all aspects? This is an omniscient wisdom that, to ordinary people, seems incredible. Zhuangzi once said, "My life has an end, but knowledge has no end. To pursue the endless with the limited is a perilous endeavor." This resonates particularly well in modern times. In today's era of knowledge explosion, it is already challenging for a person to study a single topic within a discipline throughout their life, let alone knowing everything. Many consider this wisdom unattainable. However, those who deem it impossible overlook a key point. This impossibility is based on the inherent way of human thinking and perception. In fact, it is the human way of thinking and perception that limits people from achieving wisdom of all aspects, becoming an obstacle to becoming a Buddha. If this obstacle could be removed, then wisdom of all aspects would naturally manifest before people. Second, what is meant by great compassion? Regarding the meaning of great compassion, we can understand it as the supreme and unparalleled love. This compassionate heart has two levels. One is the selfless and indiscriminate great impartial compassion for all sentient beings. The other comes from the natural revelation of the unity of clarity and emptiness, and the nature of non-origination, known as great compassion without conditions. The Buddha's great compassion is not a mere strong emotion, but the highest combination of emotion and reason, forming a unique wisdom. Unlike ordinary people, the Buddha's emotions and reason complement each other rather than cancel each other out. Among sentient beings, reason and emotion often trade off, but in the Buddha, they coexist harmoniously, always maintaining a high state. In sentient beings, reason and emotion are separate, but in the Buddha, they merge into one whole. This inseparable reason and emotion are called great compassion without conditions in Buddhism. Without conditions represents the ultimate of reason, and great compassion represents the ultimate of emotion. When reason and emotion reach their ultimate and merge, they form the so-called great compassion without conditions. The love it shows is equal, without distinction between kin, friends, or even races and sects, even extending to animals and plants. Its compassion is like the sunlight that shines on all things, hence called great impartial compassion. Third, what is meant by great ability? The concept of great ability in Buddhism is significantly different from the omnipotence described in other religions. Omnipotence usually refers to being able to do anything, such as, if an omnipotent God wishes, he has the power to take all of humanity directly to heaven to enjoy eternal happiness. However, the Buddha does not have this kind of power. Although the Buddha's ability is infinite, it is not the omnipotence of human thought. The Buddha's ability can only serve as a conditional cause, not a direct cause. Other religions believe that God can be both a conditional cause and the direct cause of everything. This actually violates the law of cause and effect and contradicts reason. I just mentioned that the Buddha's ability is infinite but not omnipotent, and this statement needs further explanation. Let me illustrate with a metaphor. The heat energy of the sun is vast and boundless, but how much solar energy we can absorb and utilize depends on our own efforts and conditions. With an ordinary magnifying glass, one can focus the sun's heat energy to light a match. With a larger and stronger magnifying glass, one can focus the sun's heat energy to light a piece of wood. Modern scientists and engineers can even use parabolic mirrors to focus solar energy as a source of energy for factories. We should understand the Buddha's ability and blessings through this metaphor, understanding the Buddha's great ability without violating the principles of dependent origination and the law of cause and effect. The pathology of human thought. Previously, I outlined the wisdom, compassion, and abilities of the Buddha, and also pointed out that the patterns of human consciousness and thought are the main obstacles to manifesting our inherent Buddha nature. So, what are the defects and characteristics of human consciousness and thought that hinder the manifestation of our inner Buddha nature? In general, human thought has the following 6 characteristics. 1. The characteristic of human thought, accumulative. Let's understand this in the following way. Starting from childhood, our parents teach us to recognize characters, learning one by one, 1, 2, 3, 4. As we grow a bit older and go to school, teachers teach us sentences, and by high school, we study entire articles. In college, we research academic papers. Taking mathematics as an example, we start with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, then learn algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and calculus. Our learning method is a gradual, step-by-step accumulation, which is what I call the accumulative nature of thought. However, can we achieve wisdom of all aspects with this accumulative method? The answer is obviously no. The problem is not that there is too much knowledge for us to master, but that our way of seeking knowledge is wrong. Imagine, can we reach the pinnacle of knowledge by accumulating bit by bit? It's like stacking up and never reaching the top. 2. The characteristic of human thought, limitation. The human mind has a characteristic. At any given moment, we can only think about one thing or a few things, but not an infinite number of things. According to the perspective of Buddhist consciousness scholars, humans have 8 consciousnesses, which means that the mind has 8 different functions. Each of these functions has its inherent limitations. For example, the visual consciousness can only see a part of the form law, and the unmanifested form in the form law is invisible to the naked eye. In modern scientific terms, what ordinary visual and auditory consciousness can perceive is only a very small part of the wavelength. Beyond this range, high waves and short waves of color and sound are invisible and inaudible to us. The same is true for the olfactory, gustatory, and tactile consciousnesses. As for the 6th consciousness, although it is more active and sharp than the previously mentioned 5 consciousnesses, its function is also limited. The 7th consciousness only focuses on the illusory self, and everything revolves around the self, which is obviously limited. As for the 8th consciousness, that is, the alaya consciousness, whether it is limited is a controversial issue. I believe it is not excessive to say that the 8th consciousness is limited in the position of sentient beings. If we look at the infinity of the great perfect mirror wisdom, the limitation of the alaya consciousness is even more obvious. 3. The characteristic of human thought, contradiction. There are many kinds of sufferings in life, many of which stem from the conflict between reason and emotion. Emotion drives us in one direction, while reason points to another. Life is like a tragedy and comedy, directed by cold reason and passionate emotion. Poor humanity has tasted bitterness under the impact of these 2 opposing forces. Our life experience can be said to be a process of the rise and fall of emotion and reason. In the human heart, reason and emotion are like water and fire that cannot be compatible. One is cold, the other is hot. Emotion is an innate instinctive impulse, while reason is mostly the accumulation of acquired learning and experience. There is another characteristic of reason and emotion in the human heart, that is, the 2 cannot coexist at the same time. When reason is at a climax, emotion is often at a low ebb. For example, when we are focused on solving a mathematical problem or a philosophical problem, emotion is usually very weak. On the contrary, when we fall in love or argue, emotion is high, and reason becomes weak. Therefore, we can see that at the sentient being position, reason and emotion are mutually offset and cannot coexist at the same time. How can we achieve the Buddha's realm where compassion and wisdom are unobstructed with such a contradictory heart? It is impossible. The simultaneous rise of great compassion and great wisdom is an inconceivable realm of the Buddhas, and is also the goal we strive for in learning Buddhism. If our hearts are full of contradictions and compassion and wisdom cannot rise together, then the perfect Buddha position cannot be realized. 4. The characteristic of human thought, upside down. Imagine, there is a table in front of me, it stands quietly, and there is no movement to be seen from the outside. In other words, our eyes tell us that the table is still. However, our reason tells us that according to scientific proof, not only is this table constantly moving in space with the Earth, but the atoms and electrons that make up the table are also constantly moving. Eyes and reason, as well as various other perceptions, are actually often fighting. There are too many conflicts, and humans have developed an instinct for coordination, not delving into the battles and conflicts between various perceptions. As long as they can coexist peacefully and perform their duties, it's fine. If we seriously consider it, the human mind is really a mess, a muddle. This phenomenon of each perception acting on its own, each being its own, taking the lead, and not seeking the truth, I call upside down. 5. The characteristic of human thought, frailty. To successfully handle various affairs, people need to concentrate their energy. Concentration is a necessary condition for success, while dispersion of energy is often the main reason for failure. The human mind has 8 aspects, note, each operating independently, leading to a natural dispersion of strength. Our work efficiency is highest when these aspects of the mind focus their power and work together to address a problem. When facing significant challenges or difficulties, we always concentrate fully. However, the mental strength of ordinary people is dispersed or exhausted 90% of the time. Furthermore, human actions and thoughts are dominated by habits. Countless habits or potentials are hidden in the subconscious, and once they encounter the right conditions, these potential seeds will take effect. Since these seeds can encounter conditions and take effect at the same time, and the actual situation is often that various minds act simultaneously, the power naturally disperses. In the Buddha state, the simultaneous emergence of various wisdoms is a wonderful use of merit, while in the sentient being state, the simultaneous action of various minds has become a problem. This is a very wonderful phenomenon. There is a saying in Buddhism, sentient beings regard Bodhi as troubles, and Buddhas regard troubles as Bodhi. This sentence is very meaningful. In simple terms, the human mind is frail and lacks strength. To achieve the great power of Buddhas with such a frail mental form is absolutely impossible. Note, whether the 8 consciousnesses exist independently is a complex issue. The 8 here is used for illustrative purposes only and does not mean that humans really have 8 independent minds. This is a special explanation. 6. The human thought pattern is substantial. Among many characteristics, this one is undoubtedly the most critical. Simply put, whenever human thought is based on substance, the so-called substance is the belief that everything has its inherent existence, or the belief that everything has a definite form and essence. How to cling to this substance and how to determine it as substance is an extremely complex and profound psychological and philosophical issue. The Middle Way School and Unsurpassed Secret Teaching of Tibet have unique and profound insights into this issue, and I hope to have the opportunity to discuss with you in depth in the future. Today, I just want to raise one point for discussion. When we look at this table, that pillar, we will firmly say, this table is not that pillar, and that pillar is not this table. Although the substantiality of human thought seems complicated, if we can understand the basic substantial form of this is this, that is that, this is not that, that is not this, we have a considerable understanding of substantiality. From birth, the education we receive teaches us to cling to substance. It tells us this is this, that is that, yes is yes, no is no. We are filled with this substantial concept every day. I want to use an interesting story to help everyone understand the substantiality of human thought. Once upon a time, there was an old monk sitting leisurely in the room, with a young attendant behind him. At that time, 2 monks, A and B, were arguing a question outside the door, and both insisted on their own opinions. Soon, monk A ran into the room angrily, and said to the old monk, "Master, I think this question should be like this," but B said I was wrong. Do you think I am right or he is wrong? The old monk said to A, you are right. Monk A left happily. A few minutes later, Monk B also ran in angrily and asked the old monk, Master, just now I debated with A, and his view is completely wrong. I am based on what is said in the Buddhist scriptures. I think it should be like this. Do you think I am right or he is right? The old monk said, you are right. Monk B also left happily. After B left, the young attendant behind the old monk quietly said to the old monk, Master, either A is right or B is right. If A is right, B should be wrong. If B is right, A should not be right. How can you say you are right to both people? The old monk turned his head, looked at the young attendant, and said, you are also right. This is an interesting and profound little story. It vividly shows the huge difference between the unobstructed realm of Buddha and the substantial realm of sentient beings. It depicts the unobstructed philosophy of Huayan incisively and vividly. Based on the above analysis of the 6 characteristics of human thought, we can draw a conclusion. With the existing human thinking mode, it is never possible to achieve the Buddha fruit. With the existing human thinking methods and mental forms, it is never possible to obtain Buddha's wisdom of suchness, wisdom of all aspects, great compassion without conditions, and boundless great ability. However, does this mean that great wisdom, great compassion, and great ability are impossible to achieve? Shakyamuni Buddha set an example with his own practice and clearly told us, if we can transform the existing mental form and thinking method, and cure these 6 problems, our inherent Buddha nature will naturally manifest. Based on this concept, Buddhism does not teach people to work hard on the known realm, just like scientists studying the phenomenal world or Buddhist scholars studying the classics. Buddhism teaches people to work hard on the knowing mind, expanding and developing the knowing mind to the highest realm, and great wisdom, great compassion, and great ability will naturally manifest. How can we eliminate these pathologies of thought? Understanding the 6 characteristics of human consciousness, we recognize them as the main obstacles on the path to Buddhahood. To achieve the Buddha's way, we must fundamentally eliminate these pathologies. So, how can we eliminate these pathologies? This requires us to delve into the core teachings of Buddhism, samadhi and prajna, also known as meditation and wisdom, or concentration and insight. Samadhi and prajna are the cornerstones to resolving these deeply rooted issues of consciousness. Meditation is not unique to Buddhism. Hinduism and Taoism in China also have a profound understanding and remarkable achievements in this area. There are vast writings on meditation and wisdom in Buddhism, and here we can only provide a brief introduction as an entry point. Although the 6 pathologies of human consciousness differ in appearance and function, they all share a commonality: they are vibrating, acting, and progressing. In English, thought can be expressed in various ways, such as thought, reflection, consideration, etc. Among these terms, I believe the gerund thinking best captures the dynamic and progressive nature of human thought. Adding ing to the verb think gives an immediate sense of the flow of thought. This fluctuating flow of thought is a fundamental characteristic of the pathologies of consciousness. Only through the method of meditation, by calming this fluctuating mental stream, can we begin to transform consciousness into wisdom. With the practice of meditation, the flowing consciousness of humans undergoes a qualitative change. Based on the power of meditation, combined with discerning wisdom, we can gradually overcome the 6 pathologies of consciousness. The consciousness of ordinary people is fluctuating, while the consciousness entering meditation is calm. Meditation, a term that sounds ancient and mysterious, is actually just a special psychological and physiological phenomenon, and it is not as mysterious as we might imagine. Our daily psychological and physiological activities are interconnected and influence each other, forming a complete system. Similarly, the psychological and physiological activities in a state of meditation also form their own system. From the perspective of ordinary people, meditation indeed appears to be different. This special psychological and physiological state has many different names, such as calm contemplation, meditative concentration, stopping, yoga, and so on, each emphasizing a certain aspect of this phenomenon. In Sanskrit, samadhi is a technical term used to describe meditation. Now, combining the descriptions of meditation in Buddhism, Hinduism, and Chinese Taoism, we can define meditation as follows. Meditation is a special psychological and physiological state. In this state, the psychological aspect is characterized by an undistracted focus on a single object, without fluctuating thoughts. The physiological aspect is characterized by a slowing down, subtlety, and even a complete cessation of breathing, blood circulation, and heartbeat. According to Buddhist scholars, entering deep states of meditation is usually accompanied by the cessation of breathing and heartbeat. From a physiological perspective, our digestive, respiratory, circulatory, and excretory systems exist to support the functions of the nervous system. The nervous system itself is there to support mental activity, or consciousness. When a person enters a state of meditation, mental activity almost ceases, and the nervous system no longer needs to work hard to support it. Then, physiological functions such as the circulatory and respiratory systems and heartbeat, which exist to support the nervous system, become redundant and unnecessary. Understanding this, we should not be surprised by the phenomena of stopped breathing and heartbeat during meditation, nor should we harbor superficial doubts. Meditation is a method to overcome the 6 pathologies of human consciousness, thought. Now, let us go a step further and briefly introduce the realms and important practices of meditation to everyone. Through the cultivation of meditation, we can gradually calm the fluctuations in the mind, achieving a state of inner peace and clarity. This is invaluable for transforming our consciousness and achieving spiritual elevation and purification. The progressive journey of meditation practice. The path of meditation is like climbing a staircase of the soul, with changes and experiences that can be roughly divided into 3 distinct stages. Stage 1, the raging ocean of thoughts, where the true journey begins. A newcomer to meditation who practices diligently will soon find that when sitting in quiet, the mind's random thoughts surge like tidal waves, seemingly more frequent and intense than usual, bringing along troubles and a restless heart. Do not worry. This is actually a good thing on the path of cultivation, a sign of progress, not regression. Consider that in daily life, our thoughts are like a waterfall that never stops, but we are usually oblivious to it without training. These surging random thoughts are a significant challenge on the journey of cultivation, stubborn and hard to tame. Interestingly, it is when we make progress in meditation that we start to clearly perceive the rise and fall of these thoughts, each thought's birth and disappearance, like the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum being softly recited, with dozens of thoughts arising and passing away quietly. This corresponds to the wisdom in the Samdhinirmocana Sutra. The storehouse consciousness is deep and subtle, with all seeds like a torrential stream, not easily revealed before ordinary people, for fear that they may mistake it for the self. The continuous emergence of delusional thoughts in the depths of consciousness is like the ceaseless flow of a river, reminding us of the complexity and grandeur of the inner world. In summary, when you encounter this first challenge in meditation, you might as well smile at the waves of the mind's ocean, because every awareness is a precious step further into the exploration of the inner self. Just as we learn to open an umbrella in the face of life's storms, it is this awareness that forges the boat to move forward in the rapids of the soul. The second stop in meditation, crossing the threshold into the illusory realm. The second stage of meditation can be affectionately called the adventure in illusion. This stage varies from person to person. Some practitioners easily step into this mysterious realm, while others may linger outside for a long time. With subtle changes in the body and mind, a series of phenomena known as illusions or mystical realms quietly emerge. Imagine, as you meditate with closed eyes, lights, nights, Buddha statues, people, landscapes, and even endless scenes seem within reach. However, if one becomes attached to these beautiful sights or overly persistent in certain feelings, it is possible to go astray, colloquially speaking, becoming bewitched. There is an interesting story from the true experience of a Tibetan high monk, both amusing and thought-provoking. One day, this Lama encountered a spider in meditation. It grew from small to large, appearing every time he meditated, getting closer and closer, until it almost touched his face, opening its mouth wide, causing him great fear. He tried to drive it away with a mantra, to no avail. He then tried to save this little thing, with compassion, still without success. Helpless, he had to interrupt his practice, and confess all this, to his master. The master calmly asked, "So, what are you going to do?" He replied, "I think next time it comes, I'll just use a knife to solve it." The master smiled slightly, "Don't rush. Next time it comes, draw a cross on its belly with a pen, and make plans the next day." The Lama did as he was told and reported back, but the master said, "Now, untie your belt and see what's on your belly." As a result, he found the cross he had drawn on his own abdomen. In this wonderful world of meditation, practitioners will encounter all kinds of strange scenes, ever-changing and beyond description. These illusions caused by changes in the body and mind, if illuminated with the wisdom of prajna, will naturally dissipate when recognized as empty in nature. On the contrary, if taken seriously, it may lead to difficulties. In short, facing the fantastic journey in meditation, maintaining a clear and non-attached heart is the golden key to a higher realm. The third stage of the meditation journey, delving into the ocean of tranquility. As you forge ahead on the path of meditation, unafraid of the disturbances of random thoughts and troubles, not attached to those illusory scenes, and persist in harmonizing the body and mind, you will find that concentration is like a spring in spring, quietly becoming more abundant day by day, leading you to the third realm, the true state of tranquility. At this moment, the waves of the mind's ocean are undisturbed, random thoughts no longer make waves, attention is condensed like a laser, breathing becomes extremely delicate, and even occasionally stops. With it comes a series of wonderful experiences, joy like the warm sunshine that fills the heart, light illuminating every corner of the heart, and no thoughts allowing the mind to reach an unprecedented state of peace and freedom. The foundation of the body and mind has undergone a profound transformation at this moment, and you are no longer an ordinary person. With the consolidation of concentration, the 6 dust troubles that once troubled us gradually fade away, replaced by lightness and freedom. Wisdom grows like a tender bud in spring, naturally and vigorously. Practitioners, with this concentration and boundless vows, are like warriors who have climbed to the top of the pole, not stopping here, but striving for a higher level. Using prajna direct perception, deepen the wisdom of non-discrimination, and ultimately, the perfect and flawless Buddha nature will bloom in your heart, like the dawn breaking. Everything suddenly becomes clear, a practical guide to meditation practice. We have just outlined the wonderful journey of the 3 realms of meditation. Next, let's talk about how to practice it. Many people automatically think of the image of sitting cross-legged when they mention meditation, but in fact, this is just one of the many ways to practice meditation. In the world of meditation, there are all kinds of methods. To give everyone a glimpse, I will introduce 6 key meditation practices, just as a starting point. If your curiosity is aroused, you might as well take this opportunity to delve deeper and practice it yourself. So, what are the 6 practices? Let's reveal them now. The first move, focus and concentrate, the yoga of the mind. Imagine that practicing meditation is like finding an exclusive resting place for the mind. Whether it's a leaf outside or a small corner in the body, it can become the focus of your meditation. For example, Taoists often choose a part of the body as the focus of concentration. Focusing on the outside, such as the tip of the nose or a stone in front of you, may take a bit longer, but it's steady and less likely to deviate. On the other hand, finding a fixed point deep inside can get you into the state faster, and the feelings will rise rapidly, but be careful not to go astray. The second move, the adventure of imagination, the power of visualization. Visualization is an advanced skill, like the 16 contemplations in the Sutra of the Meditations on the Buddha of Infinite Life, or the dazzling mandalas and meditation on the Yidam in Vajrayana Buddhism, which are representative of this school. The focus mentioned earlier is like keeping a wild horse obediently tied to a post, which is quite difficult, After all, our minds always love to run around the world. Visualization is much more flexible. It's more like guiding the mind on a journey, letting the heart follow your command, moving like a hare, and being as still as a virgin. Some people might say, "My heart, I'm in charge, I can be quiet whenever I want." Friend, it's not that simple. If you don't believe it, try it and you'll know how difficult it is to tame this heart. It's like learning to ride a bicycle. You won't truly understand the mystery without falling a few times. In the treasure house of Vajrayana Buddhism, visualizing the energy circles and mysterious mandalas in the body is a fast track for the heart and chi, which can help you quickly enter the high-speed road of meditation. We rarely use our imagination to draw continuously, but once you master this skill and continuously depict a certain picture in your heart, you will find that the door to meditation has quietly opened for you. The third move, tranquility in breathing, regulating the breath for concentration. In Buddhism, counting breaths is a basic and practical method for calming the mind, simply by adjusting the breath to stabilize the mind. There are also some advanced operations in Vajrayana Buddhism, such as Vajra chanting and vase breathing. Taoism also has many unique breathing secrets. These gentle breathing methods are like the Buddha's personally certified recipe for peace of mind, safe and reliable. The fourth move, calmness in recitation. Focusing intently on reciting a Buddha's name or repeatedly reading a mantra can also lead you into a state of tranquility. This method is not only reliable, but also allows you to resonate with the Buddha's great vows and receive the mysterious bonus from the Buddha's power. Of course, if you are a thinker with thoughts flying all over the place, you may need to be patient when you first try this method, but don't worry, persist, and its power should not be underestimated. The fifth move, Zen in motion. Don't think that sitting in meditation is the only posture for meditation. Walking, standing, sitting, lying down, and even exercising can all find that tranquility. For some friends, moving is easier to enter the state than sitting quietly. For example, China's Tai Chi is a good way to combine movement and meditation. There is also a one-word formula in Taoism that can activate the meditation mode by moving fingers. Isn't it amazing? The Buddhist scriptures occasionally mention eliminating minor obstacles during meditation through exercise, such as the muscle tendon changing classic or Vajrayana boxing. However, entering meditation through exercise may not be suitable for everyone, and the depth of concentration it brings may not be so profound. The sixth move, the mind as the teacher, comprehending the essence of meditation. Among all the paths to meditation, this is arguably the most advanced, profound, and challenging, yet the most direct path. Imagine that when you suddenly realize that there is nothing but your own nature, every thought can truly reflect the heart, then whenever and wherever, every move is a good opportunity for practice. Such a state of concentration is a perfect fusion of wisdom and concentration, a seamless connection between movement and stillness, a harmonious dance between delusion and enlightenment, without the need for deliberate pursuit or carving, natural, lively, and transparent. But such a wonderful state of concentration varies in levels and processes, as if after climbing a mountain, there is a higher one waiting. Buddha nature is right in front of you, within reach, but to fully realize this boundless Buddha nature, unremitting effort and progress are still needed. So far, we have briefly reviewed several meditation practices. There are many Buddhist practices, varying from person to person, but the core lies in the cultivation of concentration and wisdom. The realm of wisdom is vast and profound, worthy of separate exploration. Today, we mainly touched on the general principles of meditation. Speaking of this, everyone may have vaguely felt the difference between Buddhism and other beliefs, understood the meaning of Buddha, and why it is difficult for us to show the innate Buddha nature and reach the state of Buddha. For meditation, we have only scratched the surface of the iceberg. Among the friends present, there must be many who have a deep understanding of Buddhism and have made great progress, and may think that my sharing is too simple and lacks depth. In this regard, I look forward to the opportunity to explore more profound Buddhist teachings with you in the future. Of course, some people may feel that the path to Buddhahood is unattainable after hearing this, and it is difficult to even sit quietly for a while. let alone reach the state of concentration, wisdom, and great compassion, which feels like a fantasy. Some may feel that the path of cultivation is full of difficulties, and daily life is already overwhelming. Where can there be extra time and energy? Some people may also feel that Buddhist scriptures are profound and difficult to understand, and they are confused even when listening to the explanations, let alone practicing. I'd like to share a few heartfelt words with everyone present. If anyone feels apprehensive, thinking they are not qualified, or feels disheartened and wants to back down, it's really not necessary. Why do I say that? Let me first tell two short stories. Once upon a time, there were two friends, A and B, who were quite similar in their work, family, and financial status. On weekends, A enjoyed spending time with family and friends, either going on outings or sitting together to discuss life philosophies, art, religion, or engaging in public welfare and volunteer services. This couple always wore a smile and appeared relaxed and joyful, with healthy bodies. Even in their 60s, they were still full of energy, as if they were just over 40. Whenever someone was curious about their secret to staying young, they would say with a smile, "Because we sleep soundly." In contrast, B's weekends were quite different. He was keen on going out to play bridge and often quarreled because his partner didn't play the cards to his satisfaction, or the wins and losses at the poker table made him depressed. After a few drinks, he was full of complaints and grumbles. Occasionally, his wife suggested spending more time with the family, but he complained about the hard work and the rare relaxation on weekends. Later, he met a lady on the dance floor, and his life became even more chaotic. He was not yet 50, but his face was already showing signs of fatigue, his nerves were tense, and he was sometimes irritable and sometimes depressed, as if the whole world was against him. Look, the same few hours on the weekend, the different choices of A and B led to such a huge difference in results. What does this illustrate? How life is depends entirely on how we choose and treat it. Now, let's look at the second story. There are also two protagonists, A and B, who have substantial income and a comfortable life. A has a special hobby, collecting antiques. Once he sets his eyes on a treasure, he will spare no expense to get it, sometimes even regardless of the means. Year after year, his collection became richer, but the worries in his heart also increased. He was afraid that guests would accidentally break something. This really happened once, and he even went to court with a friend over it, unable to sleep or eat for several weeks. Preventing fire and theft became his daily anxiety. In his later years, he was even more full of worries and heavy-hearted, and when asked, he always avoided the topic. Everyone knew that he was worried that if he passed away one day, he wouldn't be able to take any of these lifelong treasures with him. In contrast, B's way of spending money was quite different. He was happy to support young people. Some needed help because of heavy academic burdens and poor family conditions, some were in trouble due to illness, and some were in a strange city and wanted to be taken care of. B was always generous. Moreover, he also hired some experts to provide free advice to young people who encountered difficulties, especially in love and career choices, and the experts' suggestions were very helpful. In addition, he also funded career counseling organizations, donated money to build schools, and sponsored youth health research, which were the projects he was most willing to participate in. Of course, what B did was far more than just financial input, but here, from the perspective of money usage, let's compare him with the antique king. B has been like this for decades, and his life is full of satisfaction and joy. Young couples often visit him when they pass by the city where he lives, some of whom have been helped by him, and some come to seek advice and greetings. His loving attitude, inner peace, and happiness make every person who has seen him praise him and envy him. Ladies and gentlemen, the same amount of wealth, the different handling methods of A and B, the difference brought is so great. This once again tells us that happiness lies not in how much you have, but in how you use it. The above two examples may be a bit extreme, just to highlight the contrast effect. The first Mr. A is not disgusted with bridge, and occasionally, when invited by friends, he is also happy to participate in a few games. As for Mr. B, he naturally won't help young people to the point of living in poverty himself. The core of these two stories is to emphasize the importance of using money and time wisely, especially time. Once wasted, the loss is immeasurable, and the benefits of using time effectively are so obvious. Everyone knows the value of time. Even if one lives to be 100, the years are still countable, let alone as one gets older, vision, hearing, and teeth gradually decline, and the effective time of a day may only be half of what it was when one was young, or even less. Therefore, the time that can be truly used is extremely limited and irreversible. Since time is so precious, how can it be squandered at will? How to make this precious time more valuable and meaningful is a question that every ambitious and thoughtful person should often reflect on. That's why, even if you are too busy with life, career, family, and children to calm down, I still want to make a few suggestions to explore Buddhism from a new perspective, and to prove that practicing Buddhism does not depend on an absolutely pure environment. Buddhism is not unattainable or difficult to learn, it is contained in the troubles of daily life. Even under great pressure, there are ways to practice. Moreover, such practice is not some mysterious and extraordinary act, it is just using a part of your time in a more valuable and meaningful way. This way of life not only accumulates well-being for your future, but also immediately improves your mental state and health level. Next, I would like to share some practical tips for spiritual practice that are not limited by time and space. Given that everyone's circumstances and interests vary, some may prefer one method while others might find another more suitable. The methods I list are for your reference, in the hope of inspiring you to discover more personalized and efficient spiritual strategies, making your journey of cultivation more colorful and meaningful. Firstly, let's discuss how to seize every moment and find tranquility within. If you've ever suffered from sleepless nights, you understand the value of inner peace. This serenity is not only the foundation for practicing Buddhism, but also crucial for your health and well-being. The stabilization of the mind I speak of does not mean ceasing to think, but rather preventing the mind from wandering. Buddhism offers two wonderful methods to help you achieve a state of undisturbed focus. The first is the relaxation technique. Always remember to relax, both physically and mentally. Whenever you notice tension rising, muscles tightening, or your voice rising, remind yourself to return to a state of relaxation. Because tension is the root of a scattered mind, and relaxation is the tool to counter it, available at all times and places. Secondly, Buddhism encourages focusing the mind and values the guiding role of aspirations. The great vows of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are like radio frequencies. If we can tune into them, we can receive their assistance in stabilizing our minds. The most common method is to silently recite or chant the names of Buddhas, such as Amitabha or Avalokitesvara, which is simple and efficient. Here's the key: how can we seize opportunities to practice at any time in our daily lives? Many people complain that they are too busy, but this is not the case. If you pay attention, you will find that there are many moments available. For example, there was a lady who often felt anxious, especially afraid of riding in vehicles, always clutching the handrails and her nerves on edge. One day, she had a sudden thought and started to recite the name of Avalokitesvara while riding, which not only alleviated her fear of riding, but also greatly improved her daily anxiety. Opportunities vary from person to person and must be discovered individually. For instance, some people read scriptures or chant mantras while commuting, others practice during lunch breaks, walking, bathing, getting a haircut, or even while having their hair done, and some adepts can even silently recite Buddha's name and scriptures while watching a movie in a cinema. If you are dedicated, opportunities are everywhere, it's up to you to seize them. Furthermore, reflect on your daily life. How much unnecessary speech and actions do we have? Could this time be used for more meaningful practice? Secondly, engage in multidimensional thinking when encountering issues. Looking deeper means going beyond the surface to think more profoundly. Take the previously mentioned anxious lady on the vehicle as an example. Her anxiety was clearly due to fear of car accidents and potential harm. But if we delve deeper, does her tension and hypervigilance really contribute to driving safety? Does the vehicle become safer because of her anxiety? Once we see through the surface worries and analyze a layer deeper, we often realize that this tension is actually superfluous. In life, there are many examples of self-inflicted distress and sleepless nights due to imagination. If we can learn to observe beyond appearances, these issues will be easily resolved. Emotional tension and suspicion are expressions of emotions, while deeper thinking is the application of reason. Practicing looking deeper in daily life is exercising the collaboration between reason and emotion. This way of practicing can greatly reduce unnecessary worries and make life more relaxed, joyful, and interesting. Thirdly, envision yourself as a Buddha. We previously discussed that a Buddha represents the perfect personality that embodies great wisdom and great compassion, the ultimate balance of reason and emotion, and the epitome of goodness and beauty. Everyone has the same nature as a Buddha, but it is obscured by distracting thoughts and illusions. This practice encourages you to constantly remind yourself to move towards uncovering your inner Buddha nature. For example, when you are about to get angry, immediately awaken your mindfulness. Does this reaction align with Buddha nature? Would Buddha get angry if faced with the same situation? Although we may not immediately reach the state of a Buddha, if we use imitating the Buddha's actions and inspiring inner Buddha nature as a guide for life, every step we take will move towards this goal, and our self-control in the face of provocation will far exceed that of ordinary people. Remember the phrase emulating Buddha, and your words and actions will naturally align with your nature and be close to the Buddha's teachings. When this mindset becomes a habit, the next step is to transcend imitation and directly see yourself as a Buddha. As a Buddha, how should I respond to this situation? The Buddha said that everyone has Buddha nature. Seeing yourself as a Buddha is not arrogance. Do not be afraid, be brave in practicing this path of cultivation, and do not miss the opportunity. 4. Always keep the law of cause and effect in mind. The concept of cause and effect is an indispensable cornerstone in Buddhism. On the journey to becoming a Buddha, no one can escape the path of cause and effect. As the saying goes, as you sow, so shall you reap. Some may commit evil deeds and claim not to believe in cause and effect. This is nothing but self-deception. They may speak with conviction, but inside, they are uneasy and fearful. When the consequences of their actions come to fruition, they must face them alone, and no one can take their place. Why do people have doubts about cause and effect? It is because human wisdom is limited and can only perceive the present world. Past lives and future lives are shrouded in mystery, beyond the boundaries of our cognition. However, Buddhism teaches us that the causes of today do not necessarily yield the effects of today immediately. Their maturation depends on the nature and strength of the causes, and some may even span across reincarnation, waiting for the next life or longer. The fruits we see before us may also stem from causes in past lives or distant times. Only extremely strong deeds, good or bad, can bear fruit in the short term, and this is an exception. Moreover, the tapestry of life's cause and effect is intricately woven. Good and bad causes coexist, multiple factors interact with each other, and with the arising and ceasing of conditions, the consequences of a single action are hard to predict. The interweaving of good and evil, the web of cause and effect, is not easily seen through at a glance. Understanding this, when faced with the injustices of the world, where those who harm others for their own gain seem to prosper and those who are kind and modest often face setbacks, you will not question cause and effect, nor will you complain about the coldness of the world or feel pessimistic and lost. This is because you know that cause and effect will not fail, it is just that the time has not yet arrived. Buddha said that every cause will eventually produce its effect, even as subtle as a gentle bow to a Buddha statue or a soft chant of the Buddha's name. These small acts of kindness, as recorded in the Lotus Sutra, can all converge into a great river on the path to Buddhahood. Therefore, always keep cause and effect in your heart, and good deeds will naturally arise, regardless of their size, while evil thoughts will decrease. Once this habit takes root, its power is boundless. You might as well start today, and for every action you take, consider its cause and effect. This is a practice of great power. 5. Ignite the spark of Bodhicitta. In Buddhist terminology, Bodhicitta is a core concept. In simple terms, it means that you see all sentient beings as yourself and hold a heart that aspires to alleviate the suffering of all life and guide them towards the wisdom and achievements of Buddha. Carrying such a bodhicitta at all times means that no matter when and where, you always hold a firm intention to save all sentient beings. This is the fundamental aspiration of Mahayana Buddhism. In every action of daily life, in every interpersonal interaction, if you can think of conveying the Dharma that transcends life and death and liberates from suffering, you have already laid a solid foundation on the path of cultivation. I want to emphasize that we should always reflect on whether the compassionate wish to save all sentient beings is always burning brightly in our hearts. If, when acting, you can ask yourself, does this help to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings or help them awaken? Then, your bodhicitta is already extraordinary. In Buddhist language, you have the mind of a bodhisattva. The awakening of bodhicitta is not something that happens overnight. For most people, it is a process of gradual cultivation. The first step is to avoid harming others. The second step is to always reflect on whether your actions are beneficial to others. The third step is to consider whether you can help them escape the various sufferings of life. At first, your circle of concern may be limited to close friends and family, and then expand to a familiar circle. But for this small circle, if you can always have the thought of helping others, your bodhicitta is already formidable. Gradually, this compassion will cross borders and cover a wide range of people, regardless of race or religion. At this point, your bodhicitta has become magnificent. Over time, your desire to save will transcend the category of human beings and touch all living beings. Further, it will not be limited to the present world, but will benefit the past and the future. At this point, your mind spans time and space, omnipresent. No matter what you do or what you think, you are always thinking of saving countless sentient beings. Helping one sentient being is the same as helping countless. Helping countless is the same as helping one, because Buddha, sentient beings, and I are fundamentally one, without boundaries, and the nature is infinite. At this point, wisdom and emotion merge into one, living in harmony.